Hi everybody and welcome back to lecture. This is going to be our second employment lecture for the semester, and this week what we're going to focus on is the beginnings of our resume building. This project is actually something that you're going to be working primarily with Career Services here at UT Tyler on, and they're going to work with you on your resumes, your cover letters, and later on the semester they're going to be working on you with the mock interview process. But I thought I would throw in a few cents of my own as well to talk to you a little bit about what makes a good resume. So as you may know, as you're trying to give this resume to a potential employer, you want to make sure that your resume is well put together, that it's professional looking, that it's very polished, that you've gone through to make sure it has no typos, no grammatical errors. And if you don't really take the time up front to put together a good resume, then the hiring manager, wherever it is that you're applying to, probably isn't going to give it a second glance, right? And you're trying to get a foot in the door, and think of your resume as sort of your first impression, right? An unprofessional resume, meaning one that is hard to read, the language is unclear, and maybe it's confusing, you didn't take time to spell check it, or you didn't look for any errors. Maybe it's even completely unrelated to the job that you're applying to. You didn't take the time to tailor it to this potential employer. They're just going to throw it away. I've been on hiring committees myself in which I was part of the hiring process. And if you really don't have an impressive right off the bat resume, it's not appealing, it's not impressive, we forget about you right away. Hiring managers depending on the scope of the agency or the company, they could get dozens, maybe even hundreds of resumes for one specific job. And if yours fits the mold of being unprofessional looking or maybe kind of lackluster, you as a job seeker, you're not really doing anything to impress the hiring manager, and this could cost you a potential interview down the line because you didn't want to take the time to do it up front. So if you have this sloppy resume, it's full of typos, you're just going to get ignored, and that's not what you want. Finding a job is hard enough, and you want to give yourself the best angle possible to make yourself look like a strong applicant. So whenever you're going through this, you just want to make sure it's professional looking. You want to make sure it's consistent. So if you start off using bullet points, you want to use bullet points throughout. You don't want to all of a sudden just change to numbers or letters or some other type of heading style. You just want to make sure it's consistent throughout, because then if you don't, people are going to say, well, did they just sort of put this together at the last minute? Were they not prepared for this? And again, it's just going to get tossed. Another idea in keeping it professional looking is to make sure that you're using just black text on a white piece of paper. Don't use brightly colored text. Don't use brightly colored paper. Maybe this seems like it's going to be a cute idea. It's something that you think is going to help you stand out, but it's not professional looking. In all of my business dealings, the only color that is ever on any sort of letter or piece of paper that I send out is just the UT Tyler letterhead, and it just has the official orange and blue logo that we have, and that's it. Everything else is normally in Times New Roman font, 12-point, 1-inch margins, the whole thing, just like you were to write a regular research paper or something for class. That's traditionally the type of format you want to use in your resumes as well. So as you're working through these resumes, think of it as your first impression, as I've already said. You only have a short, limited amount of time that you can get yourself across to the hiring manager, and you need to do it fast. So your language and your formatting need to be consistent. They need to be concise. They need to be clear. In no way, shape, or form should this be confusing. I should be able to skim it, read it really fast, and say, this is somebody I want to take this further with. So make sure that your font is readable. 12 point normally is where you want to be. Don't have these huge dense paragraphs. I want to see bullet points and I want to be able to read it quickly. Don't give me all sorts of fluffy jargon. Just get straight to the point. And again, I can't stress it enough. Make sure everything from language to formatting is consistent throughout that resume. I might only have 30 seconds to a minute to look over your resume. So if you're not jumping off the page at me, I'm not going to take this any further. I have a lot more to get through and I can't spend a lot of time looking at each individual one. So only give me the relevant information that is going to draw me in really quickly. Don't hide the important bits. Put them right out front and make me see right off the bat the most qualifying information that makes you good for the job that I have. So I should immediately, as somebody who is reading the resume, I should immediately be drawn into the skills and the relevant information for this particular job. So that might mean you have to create a similar or just individual resume for each job that you apply to. You might have to tailor it to this agency versus this company or what have you to make sure it falls in line with what the specific job I have for you entails. So like I said, don't use these long paragraphs, get straight to it. If I have to go through a very dense chunk of information, it's probably not going to hold my attention if I only have that much time to get through it. So I might give up and say, well, I don't have time to read this, and I'm missing the really key and relevant points that make you a strong applicant. Also, right up front, make sure you tell me what your objective and your summary is for this job. What do you want to gain from this job, and what can you contribute to my organization? You always want to be upfront and make yourself look as though you are an invaluable resource to your employer. Okay? What can I do for you rather than what can this job do for me? Okay? Also, as you're going through and you're listing employment, right? Let's say you used to work at Subway, right? Your primary goal or job at Subway was to make Subway sandwiches. You don't want to tell your employer that my duties involved making sandwiches, cutting up the vegetables, checking out, having people pay and ringing them up at the cash register, checking them out, sweeping the floors and cleaning the bathrooms. That's a list of general duties. I assume that you made sandwiches if you worked at Subway, right? But tell me what other skills you learned there. Maybe you were shift manager and you had that kind of responsibility and you oversaw a team of this many people, you coordinated schedules, you kept things organized. That's more along the lines of what employers want to see, other than you know how to put a piece of tomato on a piece of bread, right? Employers don't want to see your job description. They want to learn about the skills and the valuable information you learned at that place of employment and how that's going to help you at the new job, okay? The other thing that you don't want to do is don't explain why you left, right? Maybe you could have been the best sandwich maker at Subway, right? But maybe you just didn't get along with your boss, or your boss didn't like you, or the pay wasn't good enough, or whatever it was, right? Your new employer doesn't need to know the reason why you left, okay? Something has already happened, or something's about to happen, or you're just not happy, right? And you're still there and you're looking for something new. Obviously, if you're in my interview or you're applying to my job, I know that you're interested in something different than working where you're currently working or working where you used to, right? You don't need to justify your career moves. You don't need to explain to me why you left. In an employer's mind, the only thing you're doing is making excuses. If I got fired and you have to justify the reasons why you got fired, it makes it seem like it's your fault, okay? So you don't have to justify to me any reasons why you left your last job. You just left, okay? But one of the things that would be very beneficial is if you do have references, and most of you should. It would look kind of odd if you didn't have any references. But once you have your references from previous positions, what you need to do is either apply them or list them rather at the very end of the resume or on an entirely different sheet of paper. Like, don't just shove them right in the middle of your resume because I'm reading all about you and then I see all this contact information about your references and then I go back to you, right? Make sure there is a separate disjunct between your resume and your references. Both are important, but you don't want to just shove all this information in there sort of piecemeal, okay? So all of this is stuff that you really should not be doing, but what are some of the techniques, or what are some of the things that you can do to produce a good or a great resume? So of course you need to have all of your relevant information in terms of who you are as an individual and some of your employment history. But one of the biggest things that would benefit you, and this is something that I used to do whenever I was looking for a job, is you always want to make sure that you tailor your resume and your cover letter to a specific place of employment. So when I was looking for this job here at UT Tyler, I made it a point to go through and look at the website and look at the department information, and I found information from that website that I could tie into what was happening, right? So I made myself marketable based on the goals of the organization as a whole. Here's what you guys are doing, and here's how I can tie into that. This is what I can offer you that would help advance the goals that you already have in place. So if you can do that at the agency or the organization level, that gives you a leg up on some of the applicants, and it also makes you show, or it makes it seem like you have a strong interest in this organization. I want to work here so much that I have already been looking at things in the long term. As soon as I get this job, this is what I'm going to start working on, and this is what I'm going to start contributing to, right? So let's say in a more general sense, you want to get into the CJ field. And one of the examples that I thought of to try and tailor this or to market your skills, because I just had a student ask me for a letter of recommendation because she wanted to go, or she was applying to a job at the clerk's office for one of the local jurisdictions, and she needed a letter of reference, and she was trying to better figure out how to tailor her resume and her cover letter to this job. And so we were talking about it, and I said, well, one of the biggest things that a court clerk needs to do is have strong organizational skills, because if you're working for the clerk's office, there's a lot of different things you need to manage. You're often in charge of jury selection. You have to manage cases on the docket. You have to manage the judges' schedules. You need to keep all of the files organized for the judges and their clerks. There's a lot going on. So I was talking to my student about this, and we were talking about all the different ways in which she could sort of market her organizational skills based on the previous job that she had. So it's all about the specific application of your information to tailor it to the job that you're applying for. People want to see that you're taking time to research them as individuals, the organization, and that you want this to be a career, not a stepping stone job to something bigger. And I mean, it could be, right? We all have been in those positions where we're trying to get to the next phase of our careers. But you want the organization or the agency to make sure, that they know that you're serious about this and that you're investing time into what it is that they are doing. So this week, you're going to begin working on your resumes and your cover letters, and use the Har and Hess textbook as a guide for you guys. There's some really great initial templates that are in there that will help you with the resume process, and the authors go into a lot more detail than I do in this little mini lecture, and they talk a lot more about what you should include, the formatting of the resume, how it should look, information that maybe is not so necessary to include on the resume, but might be for other jobs. You never know what needs to be included. So all of your submission instructions can be found on Canvas. So as you're working through, make sure you're tailoring it to what I'm expecting of you for this exact assignment. And as always, if you have any questions, let me know what's confusing or what I can help clarify. But otherwise, good luck to you guys. Thank you for your time and your attention this week in our short little mini lecture. And I hope you guys all have a great day. Thanks. See you later.